Hello everyone, this is Epidemics. I'm working as an assistant professor at Basirhat College, Kolkata. Recently, I have given a talk on epidemics in Colonial Bengal from the literary perspective in a national webinar organized by Basirhat College. But that day, for some technical issues, the audiovisual quality of my lecture was not so good. That is why I am making the whole video lecture again. Hope you will like it. First of all, let me provide you a brief outline of my whole lecture. It has been divided in 4 parts. The first part is obviously a brief introduction on epidemic literature, or how literature has dealt with epidemic. The second part is a representation of epidemics in Indian literature, both in vernacular and English. And the third part, and the primary focus of my whole discussion is on genealogy of epidemics in colonial Bengal from the literary perspective, and obviously my conclusion. But this time, just a minor differences is that I won't be able to show you all those slides in this video lecture. So let's begin. I'll start with 2 poems. The first poem is a nursery poem, you can call it a folk song, and the second poem is few lines from Sophocles' Oedipus the King. So the first poem goes like this: Ringa ringa roses, a pocket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down. And the second poem of Sophocles' Oedipus the King, I'm reading it out. King, you yourself have seen our city reeling like a wreck already. It can scarcely lift its brow out of the depths, out of the bloody surf. A blight is on the fruitful plants of the earth. A blight is on the cattle in the fields. A blight is on our women that no children are born to them. A god that carries fire, a deadly pestilence, is on our town, strikes us and spares us not. And the house of Catamus is emptied of its people, while Black Death grows rich in groaning and its lamentation. So, the first poem, which can be called a very innocent rhyme, passed on generation to generation, to which we all might have held hands and danced in a circle during our childhood times. But is it something very different? Or is it an ominous verse about one of the most devastating pandemics to afflict mankind, the Great Plague of London, which wiped out a quarter of London's population in less than a year? And I'm just clarifying this. The roses are supposed to signify the blotchiness of complexion induced by the fever. The posies were carried to stifle the stench of death and disease. A tissue referred to sneezing fits caused by the disease, and we all fall down. That can easily lead to our imagination. It signifies death. And there are other variations of this nursery rhyme also. In the colonial version of it, there are some words like ashes, which probably signifies cremation of the bodies, the burning of victims or blackening of their skin, and the theory has been adapted to the apply to the other versions of the poems too. So, and the second poem is obviously from Sophocles' Oedipus the King, where the reference of plague is much more clear, I think. Let me tell you, in popular imagination of European literature is mostly called by plague. The plague is found everywhere. It belongs to the epic of Homer, to tragedy with Oedipus the Rex, which I have just talked about, to history with Thucydides, to philosophical poem with Lucretius. The plague can serve even as a background to the short story like Boccaccio's Decameron or some fables about the plague. And there are also novels such as Manzoni's Promessi Sposi or Camus' La Peste. So, epidemics have always been there in literature, prominently in Sophocles' Oedipus, or in more subdued form, just like the other nursery poem or the folk song. So, what is the significance of literature, especially in epidemic or pandemic in recent times. Since epidemic is we think pathological, medical, corporeal, and always already there as an undeniable truth of mankind. But I think this is where we need to differentiate disease and epidemic. If the former one is a bodily thing, the latter is of course a cultural phenomenon. An epidemic in Greek, the word is actually originating from Greek. In Greek, epi that means upon or above, and demos that means people. So it is basically a rapid spread of disease to a large number of people in a given population within a very short period of time. So in an epidemic, the concept of body or say the diseased body should be taken in collective form, and I think there comes literature. If history or sociology provides record, data, statistics, the death count of mortality rate is there even in our recent time of pandemics. We are watching it on television, newspaper, and everywhere. I think literature, apart from all this, gives you the account of our experience. Of course, the politics of inclusion and exclusion is always there, but how a particular culture in a given tempospatial reality conceives epidemic, reacts against it, or even retreats it is what manifested in literature. So, whatever I have just said, apart from all this, have you ever imagined reading Camus in our COVID-19 situation, in our recent COVID-19 situation, or even Marquis' Love in the Times of Cholera? I think, I guess some of you may have already done this. Then what is your experience? What is your experience as a reader? Is it only a story about epidemic, or is it just a story, or is it something more? I think in this condition, we must take help of Edmund Burke's. So Oliver Gell, in one of his articles, The Conqueror of Canada, Benjamin West and the Heroes of Sentimentalism, which has been published in a book called Pictorial Cultures and Political Iconographies. Gell said, this aesthetic affect that arises when contemplating a tragic image leads to the paradoxical phenomenon that the enjoyment received by the viewer of the tragic object increases in proportion to the vehemence of the existential threat to which he is visually confronted. The viewer experiences pleasure too because he believes himself to be secure and able to withdraw from the aesthetic horror and written unscathed. So, in this article, Gelle was actually reconceptualized Edmund Burke's aesthetics of sublime, that talked about aesthetics of horror or aesthetics of ugliness, because our understanding of aesthetics is mostly concerned with or mostly confined with the idea of beauty. But in that book, Edmund Burke was actually talked about aesthetics of horror or aesthetics of ugliness. So what Gelle said, that this sort of representation of tragic phenomenon, which is prevalent in the depiction of epidemic or pandemic in literature, leads us in dualism, reflecting our fear as well as a sort of voyeuristic pleasure, what Foucault called touristic gaze. Although the idea Gelle mainly focused on photography during play, but I think this is also very pertinent in literature, especially in context of representing epidemic. So, what literature on epidemic does, it makes us informed, afraid, motivated, or even pushed to existential crisis too. But at the end of it, the aesthetics of horror, or I should say, the pleasure of horror, pleasure of fear, is always there. As Zizek puts in a humorous way, that in doing panic, there is choices. So, what I am trying to say, that epidemic in literature, or epidemic literature, if I put somewhat in generic sense, then should be understood in both ways as a cultural testament with reference to a particular history and also from the aesthetical perspective. And we are going to explore epidemics in colonial Bengal from these two point of views. But before moving into our actual topic, I just want to quickly show how literature across India, both in vernacular and English language, deals with epidemics. Several works by master storytellers mention pestilence in passing, which underlines the epidemic prominently occupied the writer's minds, especially in the 19th and 20th century India. Premchand's Adiga is one of the most remembered short stories in this context. Some might call that its protagonist, the 5-year-old boy Hamid, had lost his father to hygiene, that means cholera. Or in Dudh another short story of Premchand, the poignant tale of untouchability is there, where one of the characters succumbs to plague. Even many perishes to cholera in Rebati, a well-known short story of Fakir Mohan Senapati, often described as the father of Odia literature. Even writers from Malayalam have also penned novels on epidemics. In eminent literary writings of Thakazi Sivashankara Pillai's Tokiyaru Makan, that's my scavenger's son, contagious disease sweeps through the Alabza town. Sahitya Academy Award recipient Malayalam writer Kakunda Namsu of Asuri, that is smallpox, explores the reaction of a distant hamlet in central Kerala following the outbreak of smallpox. In Kannada, writer E.P. Annamurthy's masterpiece Samaskara, we all might have all read that. One of the main characters, Naranappa, dies of plague. The Hindi poet Suryakant Tripathi Nirala lost half of his family, including his wife, his daughter, in the 1918 influenza outbreak. So he has some kind of personal experience, not only as a writer but also as a person, as a citizen of India, of epidemic also. In this connection, Ahmed Ali's novel, which has been written in English, is very pertinent, I think. In Ali's novel, Twilight in Delhi, it basically talks about how shroud tribes stole sheets from the grapes and how the grape diggers raised their fees fourfold due to their debt. Ali wrote, they did not bother to see that the grave was properly dug or deep enough or not. They had so many to do. He also wrote, Delhi became a city of the dead. But the people of Delhi, true to the tradition of the past, did not miss an opportunity to having a few digs at fortune. They made songs and sang them, and the leaflets containing them were sold for a piece each. How deadly this fever is, everyone is dying of it, the hospitals are gay and bright, but sorry is men's blind. He wrote very poignantly. So this is very quickly how literature across India has represented epidemics. Now we will move on to our next section, that is our main focus, is how Bengali literature confronted with or represented epidemics in colonial Bengal. I'll start with a quote. In Living with Epidemics in Colonial Bengal, Arvind Samanta mentioned India proved to be the largest disease laboratory in Asia throughout the entire colonial period. Malaria, smallpox, plague and cholera were regular visitors to the subcontinent, sometimes with many intimidations, but more often than not with epidemics vengeance. Thousands of people used to vanish within days, leaving behind those who managed to survive, but all mind in body and shattered in soul. But I will not go deep much into history or statistics. How many people have died in all those epidemics or pandemics, all in there in history books, in records, or even on the internet. So I'll quickly go how literature has represented epidemics. That's the main issue of this discussion. One of the earliest literary examples where we find the reference of epidemic is Bankim-Chandra Chattopadhyay's Anandamata. Though the novel published in 1882 is inspired by and set in the background of Sannyasi rebellion in the 18th century, is depicted the grave situation of the epidemic. Let me just mention some of the lines of Bankim-Chandra. I haven't translated. I keep the Bengali version of Anandamata intact to make you realize how grave the situation was. So Bankim wrote like this: 1176 সালে গ্রীষ্মকালে একদিন পদচিহ্ন গ্রামে রৌদ্রের উত্তাপ বড়ই প্রবল। গ্রামখানি গৃহময় কিন্তু লোক দেখি না। বাজারে সারি সারি দোকান, হাটে সারি সারি চালা, পল্লীতে পল্লীতে শত শত বিনিময় গৃহ, মধ্যে মধ্যে উচ্চ নিচ অট্টালিকা। আজ সব নীরব। বাজারে দোকান বন্ধ, দোকানদার কোথায় পালাইয়াছে ঠিকানা নাই। আজ হাটবার, হাটে হাট লাগে নাই। ভিক্ষার দিন ভিক্ষুকেরা বাহির হয় না। তন্তুবায় তাঁত বন্ধ করিয়া গৃহপান্তে পড়িয়া কাঁদিতেছে। ব্যবসায়ী ব্যবসা ভুলিয়া শিশু করে করিয়া কাঁদিতেছে। দাতারা দান বন্ধ করিয়াছে, অর্থাৎ টোল বন্ধ করিয়াছে। শিশুও বুঝিয়া সাহস করিয়া কাঁদে না। রাজপথে লোক দেখি না, সরোবরে স্নাতক দেখি না, গৃহধারে মনুষ্য দেখি না, বৃক্ষে পক্ষী দেখি না, প্রচারণে গরু দেখি না, কেবল শ্মশানের শীতাল করি। এক বৃহৎ অট্টালিকা, তাহার মধ্যে বড় বড় ছড়াওলা থাম দূর থেকে দেখা যায়। সেই গৃহের মধ্যে শৈল শিখরবৎ শোভা পাইতেছিল। শোভাই বা কি? তাহার দ্বার রুদ্ধ, মনুষ্য সমাগম শূন্য, শব্দহীন, বায়ু প্রবেশের পক্ষও বিঘ্নময়। তার অভ্যন্তরে ঘরের ভিতরে মধ্যাহ্নে অন্ধকার। অন্ধকারে নিষিদ্ধ ফুল্ল কুসুম যুগলবর এক দম্পতি বসিয়া ভাবিতেছে। তাদের সম্মুখে মন্বন্তর। রোগ সময় পাইল। জ্বর, ওলা ওঠা, ক্ষয়, বসন্ত, বিশেষত বসন্তের বড় প্রাদুর্ভাব ছিল। গৃহে গৃহে বসন্ত মরিতে লাগে। কেহ কাহাকে জল দেয়, কেহ কাহাকে স্পর্শ করে, কেহ কাহারে চিকিৎসা করে না, কেহ কাহারে দেখে না, মরিলে কেউ ফেলে না। অতি রমণীয় বহু অট্টালিকার মধ্যে আপনা আপনি পচে। যে গৃহে বসন্ত একবার প্রবেশ করে সেই গৃহবাসী রোগী ফেলিয়া ভয়ে পালায়। So this is a very vivid, desolate picture of a small village in Bengal called Podochinno, which is infected by cholera and smallpox, followed by the great famine of 1770 that Bankim-Chandra describes here. Chatterjee not only mentioned East India Company's revenue extraction and economic exploitation, especially on the poor people, but also showed how the rural people were helpless against all those epidemics. Another very significant but ironic representation of smallpox is catastrophic effect on people. The rural cult of Shitala can be found in Shivram Chakraborty's short story Devatarju, the birth of God. The story tells us how, in a Bengali society, disease never had meanings that were purely bodily. In fact, dominant ideologies and religious beliefs across time have always had a major impact in shaping the meanings of disease and the manner in which they originate and circulate. This is why the speaker of the story himself finally goes down to Shiva Linga, even after having all those scientific knowledge, taken all those tokas, homeopathy, everything. এবার মাটিতে মাথা লুটিয়ে প্রণাম করলাম, বললাম জয় বাবা তিলকনাথ, বম বম। উঠে দাঁড়িয়ে চারিদিকে দেখলাম, কেউ দেখে ফেলেনি তো। The story ends like this. So in context of epidemics in colonial Bengal, we need to understand the ritual side of it, and for that reason we need to understand, or we need to explore the cult of Shitala, or the whole process of Shitala Pujo in more detail. That will make us able to understand how ritual took place in that context of epidemic. In Fruits of Worship, Practical Religion in Bengal, Ralph W. Nicholas makes an interesting observation that the acquirement of scientific knowledge about smallpox did not prevent Bengalis from worshipping Shitala. an act which enhanced social cohesiveness actually. And the scholar Fabrizio Inferrari in his paper Old Rituals for New Threats, Position and Healing in the Cult of Shitala refutes the Orientalist view of Shitala as the smallpox goddess. He writes in his fieldwork in West Bengal revealed that to locals she was the Boshanto Roger Odhishtatri, or she who controls the fever of the month of Basanta. He also mentioned other more localized Bengali version deities like the goddess of cholera, like Olai Chandi for Hindus, Olai Bibi for Muslims, or the goddess of blood infections, Rokto Korbi. But fascinatingly, he also found that sometimes Shitala is identified with entirely different chunks of goddess like Shoshti, Manusha, the snake god, as well as Haritri and Parnashavali. I think in this connection, we must mention that Mongol couple of the medieval period in Bengal may be divided in three parts: Mansa Mangal, Chandi Mangal, and Dharma Mangal. Besides this, there are other secondary Mangal couple like Rai Mangal, Shashti Mangal, Lakshmi Mangal, Shitala Mangal, Bhavani Mangal, Shiva Mangal, Anandi Mangal, Kalki Mangal, etc. Another fascinating revelation is the ritualized variolation that form part of Shitala's worship before vaccination became very common in Bengal. Variolation, a common folk remedy in epidemics, involved infecting a person with a mild form of a disease in the hope that this would help them gain immunity. In Shitala's ritual, the person was infected dry spores from an earlier smallpox vaccine. The aim was to trigger a milder form of smallpox and thus gain immunity. The ritual variolator or Shitala Pujo, a priest, Ferrari writes, belonged to the low caste people such as Mali, gardeners, or Napis, barbers. They were known as a Tika Chikitsha. The inoculation would be accompanied by a reading of mantras and other vocal sounds which would draw the goddess into person inoculated. Arakshana, the whole process is called Arakshana, and then install her. That calls Sthapana. Isolated in a room, but under watch, the fever shakes would symbolize that Shitala had entered the patient's body, and the patient would then become Shitala and be provided with cold, stable edibles including cold water or infusions, vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. Outside this isolation room or temple, women draw alpanas. People would hold musical performances and even told stories from Shitala Pala. Once in this connection, I must mention there were some popular Shitala Palas. One of the popular Shitala Pala was written by Uriya poet Das. Uriya poet Jagannath Dasa. So once the fever subsidized, the patient recovered and Shitala's work would be done. So what do we understand from this whole process of variolation? I think it is much more than the cult or the variolation process or the ritual of Shitala. The process of variolation itself manifests caste distinction. Since the process is dangerous and can even lead to death, the lower caste people had been made the scapegoat, or even the role as their pujok or priest reflects that they were supposed to be the harbinger of disease or epidemic. For the economically weaker section of the society, the epidemic becomes more oppressive. Bibhutibhushan Bandyopadhyay, Arunnak would be one of the best examples in Bengali literature that captures cholera epidemic in Islam called Shuormadi. Through the description of its speaker, Satyachar, the author shows how poor people of the forest and their hunger problem are closely related to the spread of epidemics. Another great example would be Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay's Srikanta, published in between 1970 to 33. When Srikanta finally reached Rangoon, the British colony was already under the threat of plague. Sharat Chandra mentioned that the poor people would be the worst sufferer during an epidemic. Epidemic in his other fictions had always been a strong motive, always been a strong background in Sharat Chandra's novels, just like Pandit Moshai. I'm just reading out some of the lines of Pandit Moshai. I hope it would be very pertinent in this context. ইহার পর 2-3 দিন নির্বিঘ্নে কাটিল, কিন্তু তৃতীয় দিবসে শোনা গেল তাহাদের প্রতিবেশী রসিক ময়রা স্ত্রী ওলাওটায় মর্মর হইয়াছে। এইবার গ্রামে মহামারী শুরু হইয়া গেল। যাহাদের পালাবার স্থান ছিল সেই পালাইল, অধিকাংশের ছিল না। তারা ভীত শুষ্ক মুখে সাহস টানিয়া কহিল, অন্ন জল ফুরাইলে যেতে হইবে, পালাইয়া কি করিব। বৃন্দাবনের বাড়ির সম্মুখ দিয়ে গ্রামের পথ তথায় যখন তখন ভয়ঙ্কর হরধ্বনিতে জানা যেতে লাগলো ইহাদের অন্ন জল প্রতিনিয়ত নিঃশেষ হইতেছে। আশেপাশের গ্রামেও 1-2টি মৃত্যু শোনা যাইতে লাগিল বটে, কিন্তু বারোরের অবস্থা প্রতিনিয়ত ভীষণ থেকে ভীষণতর হইতে লাগিল। ইহার প্রধান কারণ গ্রামের অবস্থা অন্যান্য বিষয়ে ভালো হইলেও পানীয় জলের কিছুমাত্র বন্দোবস্ত ছিল না। নদী নাই, যে 2-4টি পুষ্করিণী পূর্বে উত্তম ছিল, তাহাও সংস্কারের অভাবে মজিয়া উঠিয়া প্রায় অব্যবহার্য হইয়া উঠিয়াছে, অথচ কাহার তাহাতে উত্তর মাত্র ছিল না। This passage is particularly significant to understand our next section, because we can see that not only poverty or ritual that makes epidemic in colonial Bengal a disaster, health, hygiene, or proper medication, or even the lack of it is another very important aspect to look at.